Yo, what's happening, legends? Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. We got a big week. We're going to kick started with our first Charts or Dumb stream. I appreciate you guys being here. I see you in the chats. Cats are IRL, Ches and Banter Bubbly, Dan the Legend, Johnny Gummy, sorry. I appreciate you guys joining me here today. We got quite a few things happening this week. Obviously, over the weekend, a little bit of escalations around the war. But this week as well, we have a few companies releasing earnings report on the S&P. Not really going to be the biggest effect on crypto, but definitely worth keeping in mind. We also have obviously CPI coming out, I believe on Tuesday or Wednesday this week. So there's a few factors in the market, and just in general, we're seeing a little bit of a shift relative to what we had last week, Friday, when we did our last show. What's up, Anubis Pet? I appreciate you guys being here. But yeah, guys, if this is your first time joining a Charts Are Dumb stream, please make sure that you subscribe, you smash the like button, and if you're going to leave, just kind of put me on mute and keep the tab running in the background. Let's get the watch time up. I appreciate you guys being here. Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm pumped. I'm excited for this week. Obviously, I told you guys last week we had a lot of shit going on inside of the business, things outside of the streams, but this week it seems like things are clearing up a little bit. So we'll definitely be able to start kicking off that challenge and start posting some trades. And who knows, guys, today we're going to start looking for some opportunities as well. I'm going to go through a bunch of trades that I'm looking at on a higher time frame, including Hyperliquid, which the thumbnail obviously hinted towards. And then we also have like Solana, that little shift that we saw. We were kind of paying very close attention to what was happening in Solana last week. We have the Ethereum trade coming up, and then we obviously by default have to take a look at what's happening on Bitcoin, right? Because Bitcoin's also starting to reject from that $64,000 region, and what those targets are. As you guys know, we don't enter any trade without a real understanding of the current price action in Bitcoin. So we're obviously going to spend a lot of time talking about that today and really positioning ourselves accordingly. Bitcoin's a proxy for the rest of the market, as you guys know. At last I catch alive. I appreciate you being here, Maritza. Gent who is over it. What's up, my friend? What's up? Okay, cool, guys. Obviously, just want to go through a little bit of stuff today, just kind of get it out the way. As I said, we have CPI on Wednesday. We will be doing a show on Wednesday, so hopefully we catch it. I believe it's Wednesday. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, after this weekend, we had a little bit of an escalation on the Middle East side of things. Trouble with the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump said now that the US is taking over Hormuz in the last couple of hours. Just in general, what that's created is probably a little bit of indirect volatility on crypto. Gold's not looking too good. Your general store of value assets, the S&P 500 looks okay. It's about to open in a couple minutes from now, in about 10 minutes from now. And then we also have oil. Now, oil is pressing up against that $80 region, which generally should be bearish for risk assets, right? But obviously, as we had seen in the last case where oil did push up to 140, Bitcoin was recovering as well. So nothing too heavily impactful on crypto this week, or at least it seems so, bar what we have in the CPI, which kind of could give us a little bit of surprise. So we'll pay very, very close attention to that going closer to time, and obviously in preparation of that for some of these trades. Yeah, guys, I've been paying a lot of attention to the markets here, just trying to get my gauge and kind of see where we're going to tackle this market from. There is a lot of trading happening right now. These ranging markets are creating a lot of opportunity, as you guys know, just from the banter bubbles that you guys can see. A very, very volatile time. But not even just that, just small data. What we're seeing on Binance futures are hitting all-time high in revenue, right? In volume from their futures, right? Hyperliquid's open interest is at all-time highs, or 2026 highs, sorry. So there's a lot of things going on in as far as the trading environment goes, right? These are all future-based, and that's just because of these ranging markets, these liquidity sweeps, these retracements, these AMD structures. There's so much price action in these environments, so it's an amazing time to actually kick off this challenge, which I'm very excited to do. And as I said in the beginning of the show, if you just joined now, last week we had so much work to do outside of the content side of things, and this week you can really start to pay attention to the charts. And if you guys are trying to follow along and find any of these trades, then two places you can get trades from me is A, here on YouTube, which we'll look today live, and B, you can try catch some of the trades that we drop on the Twitter account, Charts Are Dumb. Charts Are Dumb, the name of this brand, the name of this message, so to speak. You can follow there. I share the trades directly, immediately, as they come through with this little system, this proprietary technology that I've developed. Oh my God, what a big word. But yeah, effectively, when I take a trade here, I can send it directly through to charts are dumb. So make sure you guys are following there, because this is immediately going to populate if you do want to, really follow alongside that challenge, which, as I said, we're kicking off now in full gear. As I've got a lot more time now to really start to, deliver those trades and those opportunities. Bear in mind, guys, anything that we discuss on the show is not to be construed as financial advice, right? We're just having fun. We're teaching you guys a lot about trading. And I'm really just showing you my take on the market and how I'm trading these environments, because it's not the easiest of environments to be trading, right? There's a lot of complex market scenarios, a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of external factors that, are disrupting general price action structures, right? So we got to be very, very careful, but we will get it. As someone said, are you isolated or cross on the trading challenge? Well, it's not really relevant, but we're going to obviously be doing it from an isolated perspective. It's a $100 account. I'm not using cross with external balances. The way the trading challenge goes is I put $100 and we're pretending that $100 is every single cent that I have for leverage trading. So we're really not going to push the boundaries too far on risk and kind of tying in more capital and using positions from using capital from other winning positions. It's in and out trades, isolated. Keep it simple, keep it clean. No need to kind of throw shit in the pot. Yo, what's happening? Free Well, appreciate you being here. Cool. Guys, obviously, first thing, just to open up the stream on Bitcoin. Bitcoin obviously had a little bit of trouble with $64,000 since last week. We do have these major fair value gaps towards the downside, pushing as low as $60,000, which we've obviously discussed is a big potential here. I think the market obviously was getting a very, very prematurely excited around the recent recovery from about $58,000 into $64,000. It was a big correction that we saw recently. This kind of makes sense in any massive move towards the downside, that we will see these little 5 to 10% corrections here and there. But now, as we're seeing going into the weekly open, as things are escalating, MicroStrategy didn't purchase anything, so it didn't really create any volume in the market or any pressure in the market towards either direction. They raised like $455 million for their treasury. So they're just playing a game of safety right now. They're not, this week at least, they haven't really been too much of a factor today. So the market is really just pulling back. I think it did create a little bit of volatility, or just kind of created a little catalyst on the lower time frame for the initial retracement. But right now, where Bitcoin's currently sitting at, of course, we're now seeing our third rejection on a higher time frame, obviously since the 20th of June, from the $64,000 level. There does seem to be quite a bit of sell pressure on our way up. Of course, we created a little bit of these fair value gaps in the market there, little liquidity gaps, which I definitely think is where I'd be targeting. This is a pretty big candle for Bitcoin right now, kind of that massive, not necessarily an engulfing candle, but we can look at it as such, and that's just purely because we have a doji candle preceding the engulfing. But obviously what we're seeing there is a massive liquidity sweep back above $64,000 and a lot of sell pressure coming in on the daily on Bitcoin's route, or on track to kind of pull back towards these lower regions here. Lower time frame, mid-range, probably about the 12-hour time frame. We have a mid-range, a range low at about $61,500, which would be that first target, as you guys know. I'll switch back to 12 hours so you guys can see. This is obviously our range low perspective right here, 61.4, 61.5. That would be your first target. But because of this liquidity gap towards the underside here, I do think that on this next attempt here, as we start bleeding into these low regions, we'll likely squeeze out a lot of the trades that have been built up in this area. Right, as you guys can see, this has been a little bit of a support region. Bitcoin has essentially been ranging between these two levels now. I think there's a lot of longs being built up there. We'll see a lot of liquidity towards the underside, closer to $60,000. I'm pretty certain we'll see a little bit of a retracement coming back into these zones after the initial liquidity sweep of about $61,000. We've yet to come back in and see any true retracement in these points here. We obviously have some POC point of controls here from our volume profile perspective here. This obviously being $60,000 being the highest traded area in that previous range for Bitcoin. Okay, for those of you guys who don't know what volume profile is, it's effectively a way to establish at which price point within a certain range the most volume has been traded on an asset. In this example here, we look very closely. We draw the range between these two areas right here. It's not really going to make too much of a difference. That's our range. And as you guys can see, the most traded price on Bitcoin within these levels, which builds up a major point of interest, is, of course, the $60,000 region, which is at the bottom of this fair value gap right there. Okay, this fair value gap, for those of you guys who don't know, it's where you have a massive volumetric candle that leaves a full bodily structure, right? That's just a way to identify it. We also have an indicator here if we tie in the fair value gaps where you can actually, wait, we got to auto threshold it and we got to kind of slimmer it down here. We have these fair value gap indicators here as well. We have some towards the upside here. My auto threshold's a bit strict over here. Give me 1 second. I don't know why it's not highlighting. Okay, that's obviously a glitch. I'll fix it out. But yeah, we do have this little region here that I'd like to see us retrace into, retest this major order block here, this previous accumulation zone, and really make a decisive move from that point at about $60,000, whether or not we'll see a recovery and a potential entry opportunity for the market. That also, using Bitcoin as that proxy for the rest of the market, will then tie that into what we're expecting on Ethereum, which is something we spoke about pretty much in depth last week. Ethereum USDC on this asset. Very similar case scenario here. The fair value gap highlights pretty well, but coming back into the zone here, we'll tie it into a 4-hour chart because it's a little bit more easy to identify. We have these accumulation zones, these order block values over here. This is what we're looking to fall down in on Ethereum. Obviously, we've swept the previous high now. We've seen a little bit of a squeeze here. Stars are aligning, in my opinion, for this to continue that move towards the downside. Massive engulfing handle right there as well. I'm very interested to see how Ethereum reacts at around that $1,700 region here. We still have a lot of support where we're currently trading at after this big move here. On last week's show, guys, go watch back on Friday. We saw a little bit of an inefficiency candle forming over here when we targeted back down towards these low regions. We did something similar on Bitcoin where we called out that short position, which I think a lot of guys did say they took in the chat. Let me know if you got in. Let me know if you made money and you're taking profit now. But what we're looking effectively is for a first region here, we're looking up into the 1750 region. Ethereum does look a lot stronger than Bitcoin. Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin, but we have now rejected from this previous range high area here, right? So pixel perfect rejection from the zone right there. It does make sense that we see a little bit of a retracement into these lower points here at about 1700. We tie that in. It's a perfect 50% retracement after breaking these previous structures right there. We obviously have a massive volume profile as well, built up with a point of control inside the zone. This, from a technical analysis perspective, which is obviously not 100% of everything that you use, but a very, very critical level and a perfect point of retracement for Ethereum. If we're looking for some further strength, I want to see a reaction from this point, and then we'll look to take our long position on Ethereum up in towards these 1700, 1800, and potentially pushing the envelope a little bit, going up towards those $1,900 levels to $2,000. Right? We've seen a strong recovery on Ethereum. We looked at it from a very, very higher time frame perspective here. If we go to the daily, this is a major level of support for Ethereum, right? Like cycle long, 3-year long major level of support here where Ethereum is currently finding or potentially forming a double bottom scenario. We'd obviously like to see a reclaim of this range low over here, but so far it does seem as if we're rejecting that third attempt or that fourth attempt technically should come in from about 1700, where we'd like to position ourselves for that further move towards the upside there. That could really extend on a higher time frame, right? We may get a very temporary cycle bottom in that case scenario, seeing those $2,200 relief candles prior to obviously what we expect going closer to the end of the year in Ethereum and the market's price action in general. A little bit of a trend forming here as well. I tied in a little bit better for you. So yeah, let's see what happens on Ethereum on that front. If we do continue this rejection here, we may be gearing up for an even bigger move towards the upside and perfect positioning on the lower time frame here. As you guys know, I am short Ethereum very, very high up at about $4,100 when we started deviating back below this little range high over here, or this cycle range high. We deviated back below there. I told you guys I was going short on when we still had the Telegram going. And obviously, I am still in that position. These would just be hedge formations. Maybe take out a little bit of profit and then obviously grind that towards the downside. The only reason I highlight this to you guys is not to like brag or form anything like that. It's just to tell you from a risk perspective, my risk is completely different. If my long goes, it's technically a hedge position on a much larger, higher time frame zone. On Ethereum right there, and a much higher time frame horizon where I'm looking to drive this sub $1,000 going closer towards the end of the year. But Ethereum does look good. You know, we do have these little lower time frame supports that are highlighted back in March 2025, but it's got a lot of work to do. I'd like to see the reaction at about 1700. We can look for our entries and see if we can make that push towards those higher points over there. Up next, I want to talk about Solana USDC or Solana USDT, depending on your preference. Daily looks okay, right? Solana is seeing a little bit of sell pressure after the big move above $80 last week. Going into the previous week there. If we look at it from a weekly perspective, Solana is having a little bit of trouble reclaiming this major zone here, which is something I spoke about on Twitter as well. Just going to hide out this indicator quickly because it's quite distracting. We're seeing Solana struggle to reclaim this level here. We've seen a lot of sell pressure above the $80 zone here, which does look a little bit heavy for Solana. As you guys know, trading within this major liquidity gap here, as you guys can see this red area, where we've previously highlighted these huge gaps there, where Solana typically trades very quickly with low liquidity between or low resistance and low support between the $40 and the $80 range. This is the first time we were coming up for a retest, but on a weekly perspective, we have now rejected for the second week in a row. And we're really looking to either reclaim the $80 region or kind of fill out this gap towards the downside. Solana is obviously another short position I have from $99 or $94 around that region. I'll confirm for you guys on tomorrow's Wednesday show. I just need to check. But yeah, that's another position that I'm in from that point. I've obviously taken a little bit of profit in anticipation for this recovery, actually finding a real support. But Solana is still in that dangerous territory. If you're looking for spot holdings or you're holding spot or you're looking to long the shit out of Solana, we really want to see Solana find strength above $80 to validate any position. Over there, guys, we have one of the biggest inefficiency candles on the weekly time frame here, a massive gap in liquidity, a fair value gap, if you will, to this region right there. I think that Solana could easily fill up those zones if we find strength above $80. And I think very quickly as well, worth paying attention to, a weekly close above $80 would be my trigger for that. Finding acceptance, we can look to ride this position out towards these $120 regions there. Do I think that's going to hold for the cycle? Probably not. We'll likely see something like that a little bit later in the cycle before obviously going into that potential next bull cycle for Solana. But that's what we're looking at. That's the positioning that we're trying to get here, trying to squeeze up towards these high regions here. It's a little bit of a longer time frame trade, so nothing you're going to hold for the span of a week, but probably a couple weeks to 2 month hold, looking for Solana to push back into 120 before inevitably coming back to retest that $80 zone. And depending on a timing perspective from that, if it's closer to the end of the year, October, November, and Solana does sink back below $100, that could end up being the good buying opportunity and trying to buy as close to the lows as we possibly can. The next one I want to go over with you guys is Hype USDC, which has seen a little bit of shift in structure pretty recently now. I'm going to try to go to the 4 hour here. Let's see what we have. Okay, cool. First thing, guys, just straight off the rip, not typically a range trader as such, but we have now seen the structural break towards the downside here of this trend that has been carrying out. Initially, we thought maybe we're forming out a bit of a ascending triangle formation here, although the sell pressure or the buy pressure just was not there, and the sell pressure did prevail. We're seeing a little bit of a breakdown here. From a measured move perspective, we tied into this lower time frame. We have this zone highlighted right there. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, why is my thing not working? We have this perspective right. Yep. Right, the initial move down, and now we formed our flag formation. Now we're continuing that move towards the downside here. We should find a support relatively soon for Hype, but with this recent structural break, we take the range over here. Very, very simple strategy. We highlight where that POC is there, and what we'll be basically looking to find is on this little bottom formation here, we're looking for a slight retracement with the invalidation obviously being that previous trend, we're looking to look for our short position here on Hyperliquid. And possibly carry this one down to about $54, right? If Hyperliquid is overextended, which it clearly is, in my opinion, we've seen a massive, massive rally, a massive outperformance on the rest of the market. It's not unreasonable to expect a little bit of a correction here into this, like this higher time frame range low area right here, right? So we have this little range that Hyperliquid's been trading within. I think that it's very easy to expect a trade like this to play out and targeting back down towards those $54 regions there. That obviously being a nice solid 20% correction, a good risk to reward plan over there. Looking for these areas as the first entry point, higher time frame, maybe a little bit higher at about $68, 68.2. I'd like to see how Hyperliquid handles the reaction from this point. Obviously, that was your first instinct there. We will take a little bit of an entry at the lower region here of about $66, right? Coming back in to retest the inefficiency candle on this break. But this is effectively what we're looking at for the bigger entry points right there on this previous range there. Right, we could get very lucky with this one, but we have to keep our stops tight and really not kind of fall too much into the trap here. As I said, if Bitcoin does find support, the rest of the market is likely to find support. It's not that Hyperliquid won't bleed towards these areas, but we have to look at it from an opportunity cost perspective as to how long that bleed could take in a strong Bitcoin market or a strong Solana or a strong Ethereum market as well. Cool. That's it from the higher time frame perspective. I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you guys looking or evaluating these charts on a lower time frame perspective. We'll go down to the 15 minutes, see what's happening there. For those of you guys who are in trades, Solana looks okay, right? We're obviously seeing a little bit of sell pressure. We have formed a lower high here on the higher time frame. We did fill out this initial fair value gap here on the 15-minute chart. It is looking a little bit heavy. I would start to position more for a short position. And the next target for Solana short zones are obviously around the $72 region, yeah, where you may find your next support. But we are sitting on some pretty strong levels in this zone right there. So be careful with this. We are trading at a support region, yeah. Effectively, what you look for is you look for the structure break below this range over here, which if I do take this trade or I do find an opportunity in this trade, I will obviously be sharing with you guys on Twitter where I enter, where my TP is. We'll look for a little structure break like that and then potentially look to play out the rest of this range over the next 48 hours, going into CPI data a little bit later this week. Watching you until my plane takes off and signal goes away, man. Don't planes have Starlink now? I was on a plane the other day with Starlink because it's absolutely insane how fast that internet is. It's like faster than the internet I had like in South Africa, and it's in a plane. Sorry, guys. Let's find a trade. Let's do it. Okay, so Solana just off the rip here. 15 minutes. I'm looking for a little structural breakdown here. Bit of a retracement back into this area, and then we can look for those potential opportunities there. It's tied into a 5 minute. See if we can find a little bit of a range here. Yeah, Solana's overall structure is kind of leaning towards something like that. We could take the volume profile from this region. It's going to be slightly higher. But if we do break this structure here, coming back into about 76.4, 76.3, that's where we'd be looking to obviously execute that short position and carry it a little bit further. You can enter on this breaker structure, but don't enter the full position. Look to get in for like, 30% at most, right? You don't want to get too bullish going into the break of structure. See maybe at 30%, then you wait for that retracement point there to start building a little bit more conviction in that trade. We want to see that weakness obviously extend into the later hours of the day, which is only about 4 hours, 5 hours from now, and then look for that further downside target going into tomorrow, going into Wednesday, towards that $72 region on Solana. Higher time frame, obviously from a support perspective, $72, okay, right? It's fine. It could extend a little bit lower towards a $70 region. Solana has been playing extremely volatile within this region. But from this short perspective here, we're looking for the close below the range right there, retracement back into 76.3, and then looking for those further downside targets there. In fact, what I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to add an alert here. And as soon as I get triggered on that, I'll let you guys know on Twitter if I'm executing that trade, and basically want to see how the market reacts to in that point in time, right? Hopefully we get a little bit of a volumetric candle forming over here, probably push us down to about about sub 75, 74.7, and then kind of see that retracement, a little wick into the zone prior to continuation towards the downside there. So now we have quite a few trades, lower time frame trades, and obviously the higher time frame trades as well. Ethereum, very similar, although we have seen quite a good retracement already. Let's kind of tie this into a 15-minute as well. Obviously, the market's open now, so we've seen a little bit of volatility already. It does look like this one's kind of already retraced to the strategy point of view. Not necessarily yet. Oh, sorry, we've got to tie it in a little bit closer. Cool. So that's that range over there for Ethereum. We are obviously breaking that structure. We have already seen that little squeeze up to fill out the inefficiency there. That's the liquidity low right there, which we've obviously experienced that little swing and sweep of. If we do kind of retrace back into 1780 a little bit later in the afternoon, that could be the entry target there for Ethereum. Right now, we're seeing a lot of sell pressure. If you're in the short position already, we do have this major targeted area, yeah, and I think Ethereum could obviously see those lower points relatively soon of about 17.4, right? So not a massive trade, but if you're scalp trading, these 17.4 regions there or 1740 regions there are still very exciting. What's up, a King's Mentality? I hope you're doing well, my friend. I appreciate you guys being here, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you guys are smashing the like, leaving a comment, dropping if you take a trade, if you won money, if you lost money. Last week we had our highest viewership. Last week Friday, we had our highest viewership, our highest retention, our highest comments, and our highest likes. But our worst performing video, which is quite insane, I think is probably the niche a little bit, or maybe the length of the videos. Time will tell as we get better at this whole YouTube thing and, kind of improve our streams accordingly. But yeah, quite interesting to see that one performed the least well, right, when we had the most retention. So if you guys want to contribute and kind of help grow the channel and reach more people, I do have more Instagram videos coming out this week as well, discussing engulfing candles, liquidity sweep strategies, fair value gaps, and a bunch of other things which should come out from Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then the next week we have 4 videos coming out as well. So make sure you're following in on Twitter as well. BTC USD. Let's see what we have over here. Maybe Bitcoin can give us something. Also, another interesting one here. Obviously, we are now breaking these lows over here. We'd like to see Bitcoin come back towards the 62.9 region for that entry. It's just a timing perspective here, right? Because our support is at 61.5. That's obviously the bigger support. A lot of volatility on this market open, which happened about 15 minutes ago, as you guys can see with that candle right there. We've now obviously lost the big support level here. Tricky one as well. Not the best price action to try catch a trade on right now. I think Ethereum and Solana do look like the better opportunities. For Bitcoin, obviously, just from that range, you're looking at a little bit of a retracement into 67.8. We've now obviously swept the liquidity low at this point here, although a little bit of low volume over here. We had an engulfing candle, which led to slight recovery of about 1%. Now we're coming back towards the underside here. I'd like to see a slight retracement here before looking for anything. Although this wick over here on this previous recovery created a lot of sell pressure for Bitcoin. Yeah, if you're short Bitcoin, obviously target would be about 61.5 from wherever you're short. And I think someone in the chat did say that. Let's have a look and see what's happening on Zcash. Guys, drop your tokens in the chat. Let me see if I can find anything for you guys and go through it. Zcash looks extremely heavy as well on the lower time frame. Let's take a look at the higher time frame here. Big support region here. You see these engulfing candles are amazing trades, right? Like big strategy right here. I definitely would pay attention to it. You don't want to take engulfing candles at highs. You only want to take it at lows. So yeah, we had a low one here, which wouldn't have necessarily gone according to plan, but we had the short one prevailing it right there. So this one would have actually just triggered a position close. But that one ended up going down about 5%. It's just an amazing candle, right? So I'm going to release a full strategy on it. Anytime we see them, they really provide strong opportunities. They're 6%. A lot of volatility in these regions here. Obviously, got squashed out 1 or 2 times. But yeah, following a good risk profile here, you'll be in a really good place. Look at that one there. But yeah, obviously, guys, looking at this one here, we're coming into a pretty big accumulation zone here. It's not necessarily something I'd look to short into. If you got a short from a decent point up and you're up that 10% from 55 or 550, sorry, these are pretty decent take profit opportunities. We do have this liquidity point at the bottom side here. Leave a little bit in for that little shot that we do kind of extend towards these lower regions here. But this move has extended quite substantially over the last week, last weekend there. So, don't hold on too tight onto these positions here. This is a big order block over here for this thing to effectively refuel for that next move towards the upside. Let's see. INJ USDT, something I haven't seen in a very long time. Let's see. Not really anything too exciting happening on INJ here from a lower time frame perspective or mid time frame perspective there. We have seen a bit of a deviation play over there. We've kind of swept these highs and found acceptance back below the range. From that perspective, obviously that looks a little bit heavier there from the ING point, that we definitely could start to see these low regions here, given the weakness that we're seeing on Bitcoin, given the weakness that we're seeing across the market. It's very easy to see this asset start to bleed down towards these low regions here, coming down to about I'm saying a boot so much, so I'm not even Canadian. I don't know what's happening. $4.52 is really where I'd look to see that retracement go towards. For that, given that deviation, then we can kind of see how the market reacts at these points. Deviations are amazing swing failure formations, right? It's a very important and critical price action formation to understand. It's effectively where a level is swept and then reclaimed, right? So that's your support level right there. We get the sweep and then we get the reclaim right there. As you guys can see, that leads to that push towards the range high. Very similar case scenario. We sweep the highs right there. We see the reclaim right here. And that obviously, if given enough sell pressure, reaches that range low right there. That's the trading range for Injective when you're looking for your next opportunities, obviously coming into a potential long position or recovery zone from there, maybe back into this point here where we're currently forming out this order block right here. It's solid. It's okay, right? From a short perspective, amazing positioning. Long position, I'd be a little bit more on edge. Aptos, Aptos is okay, I guess. A lot of these assets, they just don't have anything behind them right now from a fundamental reason for them to move, right? You're kind of playing a game here. There has been occasional pops in the market, but a lot of these assets, like playing a very boring game. I'd really prioritize trading where the money is right now, right? And that's clearly on your higher market cap plays currently, and there's a few assets obviously on the bounce bubbles that are getting a little bit of attention. Lit is down, lighter is down 11.5%. I wouldn't touch these plays because they're obviously extremely volatile, but these weekly perspectives can give you a lot of opportunity in the market, right? And tell you exactly where to be positioning yourself. In these bear market conditions, we have very strong ranges, and a very big thing as a trader is to limit opportunity cost. For those of you guys who don't know what opportunity cost is, you only have so much time to trade. You only have so much money to trade. You really want to be positioning yourself where the attention is. Otherwise, you end up holding a position for a long period of time. Even if it does well, you end up missing out on some other amazing opportunities in the market, right? And those opportunities missed is what's known as your cost of opportunity, your opportunity cost. So be very careful of that. This asset, I mean, it's just really nothing too solid happening here. I'll go to a 4-hour perspective. We do have a little bit of support here. The higher big level of support is obviously at about 62. So you're trading within this little weird no man's land right there. We've found support before. We've bounced from this region before, but it's just not something I'm interested in, right? I couldn't even give you a trade from here. That's your support if you're in a bullish position, right? Underneath that point, you're looking at some pretty drastic pullbacks towards 58. Not drastic, but, good 3% pullbacks, depending on what time frame you're trading on. But there's these pretty big gaps towards these lower points over here. And given the price action on the higher time frame, you got your highs and your lows, and we are clearly in a downtrend here, not breaking these previous highs at all. Right, which does indicate that with enough sell pressure, we'll obviously sweep this low region here, maybe kind of form out a little bit of a trend structure here, maybe a little hidden divergence on a certain time frame, and let's see what happens. But for me, not really the place to be trading right now in Aptos. Okay, we'll do one more, guys. Avalanche USDC. Another one. Not a lot of people trading. Not a lot of people talking about it. Avalanche is technically up today, which is not too bad, I guess. Big level of support here for Avalanche. We have some massive gaps towards the upside here. Some huge target points towards about 850, which is a big, very optimistic push. But generally speaking, what we've seen in Avalanche recently, it's just not performing with the market there. There's no real reason to think that Avalanche is going to see such a major recovery here. It's just really a dead chain. So yeah, this is your current range in Avalanche. I mean, you're just trading between these two levels here. Currently, what we're seeing is that initial breaker structure here. I'd lean more towards a short position here, right? This is your lower time frame accumulation zone right there. Right, your little flag formation there, which we've clearly broken towards the bottom. We've seen the inefficiency candle, which I described to you guys last week. Now we're looking for this reaction right there, which is clearly a fill. And I think a lot of sell pressure coming behind this asset towards the lower side here. I just think from a positioning standpoint, this is like a good 2-day hold or 3-day hold towards these lowest $6 regions here. Maybe a 7% correction from this point on. That's effectively what that formation looks like to me. That's how bearish that looks right now. Avalanche is just not great positioning for any upside opportunity. Obviously, we are coming into a level of support here at about 6.4, so be careful of that. But we definitely could see that extension towards the lower side here. We've obviously seen more bearish price action recently, a little break of structure here. We had a little bit of a trend forming over here, which is now broken. We've seen a strong retest here. Yeah, I'd obviously expect us to start bleeding down over the next couple of days. This is very similar to what we're looking at in Bitcoin, obviously, right? We saw the break of structure right there. Sorry, not Bitcoin. Was it Bitcoin? No, Solana, sorry. We saw the break of structure there, coming back in, retest the point of control right there, and then seize that further downside. Now we've formed some liquidity gaps and inefficiencies there on the lower time frame, which could definitely lead towards these lower points of about 6.1. given the price action we're seeing on Bitcoin as well. Guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to drop trades as much as I can find on the Charts Are Dumb Twitter, guys. Make sure you follow at Charts Are Dumb on Twitter, and that's where you'll get all the trades as I execute a lot of the ideas here that we've seen. Obviously, I said this week I have a little bit more open time, so we can definitely start to take some trades and start growing that account, hopefully target towards that $150 to $200 region by the end of the week. That'll be a little target for myself. It's very optimistic, right? Because we're treating the account like it's our main account. Going up 100% or 50% in a week is quite a stretch. But we're going to try do it. We're going to see if we can get like a couple $10 wins, a couple $15 wins. As you guys know, the account compounds. We increase our size as the account grows. So in the beginning, we're going to be making $10 or $6 or $8. Over time, 20. Over time, 30. Over time, 100. And then hopefully over a long enough period of time, if we find enough success, going into the thousands of dollars per trade, right? Once we get to about 5K, we can potentially increase the account size by 20% and kind of see those type of P&Ls. But yeah, we gotta tread lightly. We gotta play it patiently. We gotta time it right. There's a lot of people behind this, a big community behind it, or growing community behind it, not a big community. So yeah, we'll time it perfectly. Guys, have a fantastic evening. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you leave a comment at the end, and I will catch you guys again on Wednesday. Much love, guys.